Daddy's back with more Game Boy Advance games, dickheads. I saw blue on the cover and confused it for a Mega Man game, so I guess we're doing this today. I don't talk about Dragon Ball around here much because I don't usually have a reason to, but I fucking love Dragon Ball. Considering I've known about the series since I was about 5 or 6, the hundreds upon hundreds of hours I've spent watching the shows, reading the manga, watching fan content, playing the games. Seriously, Dokkan Battle might be the game I've put the most time into in my entire life by sheer virtue of playing it for 9 years. And whatever other Dragon Ball media I've partaken in, there's no fictional universe I've been part of for longer than that of Akira Toriyama's Screaming Buff Boys Emporium. So I know what I'm talking about when I say the topic of today's video sucks. The Legacy of Goku, the first Dragon Ball game developed exclusively in the West, a Game Boy Advance title from 2002 created by Webfoot Technologies. They're a small company that's famous for the Legacy of Goku games, and no disrespect or ill will towards the developers themselves. I've never spoken to them, I don't know anything about them, but I'm going to be not nice throughout this video. I just want it to be clear that nothing I say is meant as a personal attack on anyone who worked on this game. This same team would go on to make 2 of the best Dragon Ball games to ever grace a handheld, so there's clearly some sort of skill here. If anyone who worked at Webfoot somehow sees this video, you're very cool, and I'm sorry for the things I'm about to say. Now, having laid out that disclaimer, how the fuck did these goobers get the Dragon Ball license? It's hard to believe that Dragon Ball, of all things, would just toss out game rights to some nobody Western studio with less than 20 members. At least through a modern fandom lens, but this game released in 2002. While having been massively popular in Japan for over a decade at that point, Dragon Ball was just finding its mainstream success in America in the early 2000s. It took Dragon Ball a long time to properly reach the States because dubbing was much slower and much...
Your father was an average fighter, Kakarot, but he was a brilliant scientist!
worse back then. Even at that point, however, DBZ was being seen as another kids' cartoon fad, like Pokemon or something, and brand holders were desperate to pump out as much merch as they could possibly find as fast as they could before the series' popularity died off. But that's still only half of the story. This isn't entirely on the West, you fucking weeb, don't start that crap. Even in Japan, the Budokai games hadn't yet revitalized and popularized Dragon Ball video games as a whole into the mainstream. There were weird, awkward, mediocre Dragon Ball games released in Japan for ages as well. So while nowadays the Dragon Ball property is more selective with their titles and upholds a certain standard of quality, yeah, they didn't really give a shit about that back then, making Legacy of Goku less bizarre in retrospect. I know this might seem obvious to a lot of you because, like me, you were there for all of this, but you gotta realize a lot of younger Dragon Ball fans haven't really grown up in a world where half the Dragon Ball games that released were just fucking terrible. The last bad mainline Dragon Ball game was Battle of Z, and that came out over 10 years ago. The quality has been okay at the very least since then, if not amazing. With all this in mind, it shouldn't surprise you that the Legacy of Goku performed well regardless of its quality. But I thought today we'd have ourselves a nice little time tearing into this mess together. Is there any value in criticizing a 20-year-old game from developers who learned all their lessons and improved with the sequels anyway? No. But we can still point and laugh, that should be fun, right? Man, if Toei had the balls to flag this 5-pixel slideshow of their footage, I wouldn't even be mad. I'd laugh my ass off while deleting the video from the channel. This is a great first impression though, a proper opening FMV, one of the very first Game Boy Advance games to have something like this, and by the goofy-ass compression you can tell. As I've said endlessly in other videos, the GBA carts have very tiny file sizes, so it requires quite a bit of tech fuckery to get actual video files on there and still have room for a game. This is the most impressive thing in the Legacy of Goku one, and you'd hope I'm kidding about that, but we're given a slow opening crawl describing the beginning of DBZ. This is an RPG, so you'd think we'd at least get some characters talking, or some visuals, or anything. But if there's one thing Legacy of Goku isn't interested in, it's telling the Legacy of Goku. So, Goku and his 6-year-old son Gohan, 6? If I remember right, this is because the old dub aged Gohan up slightly. Gohan's 4 at the start of Z. We made it literally 2 text boxes before an error showed up. If you're a serious stickler for canon, this game is gonna be a bad time for you. I know I'm being nitpicky, I'm well aware of that. I'm going to continue to point these things out because I think they're funny. But I do recognize that these errors are likely caused by Webfoot having very limited access to official Dragon Ball materials. I imagine they had like loose VHS tapes of the first 2 sagas from the original, very important but very inaccurate English dub, and just had to wing it from there. So maybe not all of these mistakes are their fault, but like I said, I just think they're fun to point out and laugh at. Jeez, good thing I was wearing my seatbelt or that sudden jolt would have killed me. We're starting right at Kame House, where Goku is introducing all of his friends from that show you skipped to his son Gohan. Obviously, this takes the form of finding Master Roshi's smut mags around the island. And while this seems like a mundane, out-of-place chore, it's actually an almost scarily appropriate tutorial for this game's structure. You'll see what I mean. Now that we're on the playfield, the graphics look okay. They're pretty nice, to be honest. I like the chibi style of the characters, and the backgrounds are strangely detailed in places. This appears to be because a handful of them are compressed stationary images, sometimes even screen caps from the show itself, rather than sprites, which is an effect that worked much better on the small, badly lit Game Boy Advance screen than it does on a modern monitor. This approach was abandoned in the sequel, so I wonder if this method took up a lot of that precious file size. To get a move on here, we gotta talk to everyone. Roshi, Krillin, Turtle, Bulma in her Namek outfit. Okay. But, oh god, you've certainly noticed that we have bigger problems. Or rather, smaller problems. The dialogue portraits in LOG are ass. Mostly because they're so darn tiny you can barely see them. I mean, if I had to draw someone's face out of 12 pixels, it would probably look like shit too. Alright, no more visual talk. Time to get this plot rolling. Statistically speaking, this was at least a few people's very first introduction to the story of Dragon Ball. And that idea is very humorous to me. So then, forming a reluctant alliance with his current greatest rival Piccolo, before he gets replaced by some manlet from Vegetable World, Goku hops aboard the Flying Nimbus and goes home. For whatever reason, rather than going to save Gohan directly, Legacy of Goku plops you down in the middle of the forest and has you dick around for the next 30 minutes. That means we're gonna have to actually start getting into how this game plays, and I'm not really looking forward to that. The Legacy of Goku's closest cousin is Zelda, looking and playing very similar to games like Link to the Past. But that's only in concept, not in execution. Movement feels terrible. It's very slow, with no diagonal input whatsoever. Completely lacking a dash or run button like every other game in this style has. Fucking Link to the Past had diagonal movement and a dash, and that came out in 1991. The stiff movement reflects onto the combat system as well. When it comes to fighting, you have an overwhelming and enticing 2 options. Your main attack is to throw out some punches. You mash A, and you punch. Sometimes Goku swaps what arm he uses, but you can't control that. There's no heavy attack or timing or anything of the sort. Despite being so simple, a toddler could understand it. It has some big problems I'll get to in a moment though. The only other offensive ability Goku starts with is Ki Blasts. You can charge them slightly for more damage, but they seem to overall be weaker than punching, in exchange for being a ranged move. Ki Blasts also require energy from this green meter. There are no key restoring items in Legacy of Goku 1, and barely any usable items at all, come to think of it. Just healing herbs which heal you slightly, and senzu beans which heal you entirely. So the only option for ki recovery is to wait for it to refill naturally. The developers were gracious enough to make this a pretty speedy process, but I have a feeling that's more because the game would be basically impossible if that wasn't the case. Let's get this cat out of the bag, shall we? The Legacy of Goku is hard. Really hard. You might be excited at hearing that. Pumped for the idea of a challenge. Don't be. The game is hard, but not for like any good reason. There are no complicated patterns or gear to collect or stats to allocate or complex maneuvers or anything. The enemies just move really fast compared to how slow you fucking bumble around. Your range is very short and awkward, and the hitboxes are, speaking plainly, the worst hitboxes I've ever seen in a video game. That last one is the real kicker. Almost all difficulty stems from this fact. The lack of solid hitboxes ruins the entire combat system. Your very first combat encounter will likely go something akin to this. Look up any mention of Legacy of Goku Online and you'll find someone mentioning gets hit by Wolf twice, dies. This is a universal experience for those who have played this game. Not only are the enemies far too powerful the instant you're given free reign, but they are often fast and will phase into you, forcing you to jiggle around to find the stupid precise point where Goku's pitifully small fist hitbox will make contact with your opponent. And even then you're probably still fucked because attacks don't cause any knockback or animation resets, making physically attacking at all incredibly dangerous. Like many basic aspects of this game, this will be fixed in the future by making characters attack in large sweeping motions and having targets be pushed backwards when hit. But that doesn't help us now, does it? Having to be perfectly lined up with enemies that can just walk past you with this tiny melee window while moving at a speed that could charitably be described as glacial makes all the battles in this RPG about battling ceaselessly frustrating. Unless you just get lucky and the AI breaks entirely. This happens a lot. The smartest thing you could do is just avoid combat whenever possible. But how could you do such a thing? It's not like you can just fly over. Oh, wait, you can. By pressing R, Goku will start to fly, consuming one of these points every time he moves one tile over. Flying is very limited in the beginning of the game, and it doesn't help that you'll likely try it the first few times only to instantly run out or get clipped on a wall or something and just be confused. You are constantly questioning when you should fly and where. The game is incredibly picky about where you can and cannot fly, and you're very likely to drain your flight energy on areas that the game has no intention of letting you get to anyway. And unlike Key, flight energy doesn't recharge naturally. You have to find designated pickups to restore it. If you need to fly for whatever reason, you have to just wait patiently like a good little bozo while you wait for them to respawn. The flight cap increases as the game goes on, and I've got no shame in admitting I haven't the slightest idea why. Does it increase with level ups? Does it increase when you collect certain colored flight orbs? Because there's like 2 or 3 different colors. I don't know, and I don't care. After about the halfway point, I had so much flight power, I didn't concern myself with it. But, you know, after all this moaning about the gameplay, let's move on to some of the positives. The Legacy of Goku games are famous for having tons of playable characters with different stats and special moves. It's a nice way to add some variety to the usually rather basic core gameplay and offer the different perspectives required to tell a proper Dragon Ball story.
I lied.
Goku only. Nobody else. Not even for a second. Not even for cutscenes. We never even shift POV away from old Kakarot. Those familiar with the story of Dragon Ball Z may have just noticed the problem that arises from this decision. The game is all about Goku. It covers the Saiyan and Namek arcs from the show. Goku is the only playable character. Goku is absent from the majority of these sagas. I checked because I wanted a number. This list is entirely of my own making, and you may disagree with the specifics I've chosen, but I think you still get the basic gist of where I'm coming from. This is a list I put together of all the major plot points in the first 2 sagas of DBZ. And here are all the ones Goku participates in or is even around to see happen. As I said, even if you have small semantic arguments about the exact points I've selected, you still understand that Goku is simply not a factor for at least half of this story. So what the hell do they fill this game with to make it longer than like an hour? How can they possibly tell a story when the point of view character is just gone for major chunks of it? Keep that little question in mind as we move on. The very first main quest is to find this old man in a magic dinosaur cave who tells you he can help you get to Raditz and Gohan, but first you need to solve every problem in the forest. I shit you not, and you better find this fun because the entire game is like this, an eternal chain of pointless, charmless side jobs that feel nothing like Dragon Ball and do nothing to evoke the feeling of the universe. You grab a kid's boat, save a cat, pick flowers, and find 3 rocks. rocks. My son could be dying. When the forest is calmed or whatever, talk to the old man again and he'll allow you to go through his mystic dino skull. But not before he teaches you the solar flare. Whatever. It's time to finally go beat up Raditz, the first boss. So did Piccolo also do a set of dumb busy work missions, or has he just been waiting here for us for the last half hour? Like I said, Raditz is our introductory boss, and he is the only boss. Elaboration is in order. There are no unique enemies in the Legacy of Goku. Every enemy has the exact same AI behavior and the exact same 2 possible attacks. A melee hit and an energy blast. Even the bosses. This means every boss is fought with the exact same strategy. But what is that strategy? You can't kite him around to take quick jabs at him because you move too slowly, and as explained before, getting close is too dangerous because he kills you in 3 hits, just like everything else. I suppose you could just run and fire ki blasts, but between the weak damage, energy recharge, and constantly having to create distance, that would take fucking forever. What about that new solar flare? Its purpose is to stun enemies by blinding them. You just have to trust the game on this one. They didn't bother giving the solar flare an actual visible effect. The enemy will just stop moving. The issue here is twofold. You can't tell when the solar flare has run out, but more pressingly, you can't tell if it worked at all because the terrible AI freezes in place all the time anyway. Enemies already have a nasty habit of breaking and standing still for several seconds, even when you're right beside them. So how am I meant to tell if they're blinded or the game's code is just struggling and screaming to be put down? You better get over it though, because this is every fight in the game. You run, you solar flare, you land an attack, you repeat. Enjoy this for the next 3 hours. It's the only consistent strategy that works and also doesn't take literal years to bear fruit. It's not a matter of it being the fastest elimination method or it being satisfying or anything like that. The solar flare is required because the combat is simply too random and poorly balanced to not abuse it. Be aware that even once an enemy is stunned, the same problem of hitboxes still persists. I cannot stress enough that you just can't hit anything in this game. The lack of a health bar also means that you haven't the faintest idea how much damage you're doing. So maybe I'm hideously underleveled or something, but there's no way to tell. Does this look like a good time? Blue Piccolo, please help me. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you catch all that? You understand what happened, right? So we've jumped to Kame escorting Goku to Otherworld. We talk with King Yama about meeting with the legendary martial arts master King Kai in order to... Well, the game actually didn't mention that part. Kami ends up telling you about Vegeta and Nappa anyway. He's God, I guess. I'll accept this. On to Snake Way, an impossibly long and winding path that stretches across Otherworld, beneath which lies the abyss of hell itself should one fall off. This is translated into the game as a long stretch of nothing where touching the walls hurts you. This is also where the game's weirdest inclusion is. Princess Snake from the small filler arc of the anime. But you don't like go to her castle or have to fight her servants or anything. She's just a random goon on the street that you punch a couple times and then she explodes. I wonder if this is remnants of a Snake Castle level that was discarded because of lack of development time or funds or something. After walking for a bit, Goku, the superhumanly acrobatic and agile alien, just sort of stumbles into a little whoopsie doodle and falls off the road. In the anime screenshot they used here, you can still see the truck he's meant to have fallen off of, even though that plot point isn't present here.
Welcome to hell. Welcome to hell. Welcome to hell.
This is the home for infinite losers, HFIL, a name absolutely not censored from any other word. Goku is knocked down here after falling asleep on a passing truck and has to deal with the CrossFit demons Gaz and Mez to find his way back to Snake Way. In Legacy of Goku, this takes the form of corralling lost souls in a huge empty room with no enemies for 10 minutes and then eating a fruit. Eventually we escape and head down Snake Way again to reach King Kai's planet. You punch Bubbles, whack Gregory, it takes 30 seconds, but at least it'll be worth it when we get the Kaioken and the Spirit Bomb. Oh sorry, this is early Dragon Ball dubbing. The Kaioken and the Spirit Bomb. Oh wait, this is early Dragon Ball video game dubbing. King Kai's Fist and the Spirit Bomb. What, a more powerful technique than Goku has ever seen. Yeah, there's no Kaioken or Spirit Bomb in this game. At all. Not even in cutscenes. Screw this place, I'm coming back to life. Goku's immediately thrust back down to Earth, wished back from the dead by the Dragon Balls. The Z fighters are already in the midst of battling Nappa, and once again, if you've never seen the original series, this would be unfollowable gibberish, because they've skipped Gohan's training, the battle with the Cybermen and Nappa, and the deaths of 4 different characters. But you and I both know that we aren't gonna rush to the battlefield to save our friends. More saving stuck kids, fetching bullshit, getting killed, stopping a bank robbery. This one's for all the people who say Goku shouldn't get hurt by bullets. We stroll past this army base. Oh, Nappa's just here now. I guess it's time. He's already dead. Vegeta now? What? Why is he in his Namek outfit? Oh shit, he's powering up and his shoulder pads grew back. Of course, Vegeta's famous ability to spawn new armor out of his ass. Okay, we got him. Great ape. Oh, fantastic. Another phase. No, Yajirobe cuts his tail off and then, well, why'd you even bother making the sprites then? Gohan transforms and wow, that looks really bad. And Vegeta is spared. What? Wait, our friends are dead? No one said anything about people being dead in this game yet. There was no cutscenes. Vegeta just fucking vanishes and Krillin says they're going to Namek for the Dragon Balls and Goku should take the capsule ship when he's ready. But wait, that's screenshots from... I don't think I've ever played a game that speed ran through its narrative so fast that it actually gave me a headache. So then... the answer to my earlier query about how the developers will address the fact that Goku's absent for most of the series, the answer is that they won't. Remember my list of the bare minimum plot points? Want to see what it looks like when I remove the story beats that Legacy of Goku doesn't show? This isn't the worst video game I've ever played, not even close, but it is the worst video game adaptation I've ever played. One of the worst media adaptations, period, in terms of presenting a story from somewhere else. Funnily enough, the only example I could think of that's worse than this is Dragon Ball Evolution, and at least that's trying to be an entirely different thing. You know, Dragon Ball Z games are criticized nowadays for the Raditz taboo repetitiveness of the plots, but back in the early days of the fandom with, say, the Budokai games, this was great. The internet wasn't as commonly used or extensive, and it was difficult to watch episodes of the show you may have missed on TV. So having the games as a way to sort of re-experience all your favorite moments, or the moments you might not have seen at all, was a huge appeal of these sorts of titles. This just doesn't feel complete. Not like an official product that cost real money. This is like an alpha pitch proof of concept that somehow got accidentally released. And we're halfway done. The first thing that happens on Namek as Goku rushes to this alien world to save his dying friends is stopping to plant some trees. If I wasn't playing the game, I wouldn't believe me either. Since we're gonna be screwing around for a bit anyway. You might think now would be a good spot to grind for a bit then, but I don't know if that would even help. I've waited till now to talk about this, but Legacy of Goku's biggest crime, aside from the dogshit hitboxes, is that the stats appear to be fake. The only visible stats are your HP and ki. Your strength looks to go up an infinitesimal amount after many level ups, and sometimes your speed will also increase very slightly. But the only two numbered stats are worthless. Like, your ki goes up and up over the course of the game, but the bar drains and fills at what looks like the exact same rate, despite supposedly multiplying many times over. And as I've already complained about a dozen times, Goku dies in 3 to 4 hits to everything everywhere for the entire duration of the game. So it never feels like your health is going up either. When I was messing around later on, I found that restarting the game from scratch and using a level select code to skip far ahead in the game without loading a save, at level 1, Goku takes the same amount of damage from the same enemies, even though his HP should be way higher, like tens of times higher. If his health is going up, it's at such small intervals that it makes no perceptible difference. So what's the point? Is my game bugged? I know I'm a broken record about this, but this is another thing that the subsequent games fix by adding visible stats, visible damage numbers, allocatable stat points, and equipment. And damn it, I just want to play Legacy of Goku 2. Can we be done with this now? One of the Namek areas here has like a really cool level theme I liked. I just feel the need to say something nice. The game just gives up on even trying to match the source material around this point, throwing us into a generic-looking, blocky Zelda dungeon with random warps that doesn't even remotely resemble anything seen anywhere in Dragon Ball, and tasking us with collecting 3 magic stones. Oh shit, it actually is Zelda. We arrive on the battlefield. Half of the Namek saga has been skipped by this point, and we politely speak to the members of the Ginyu Force, or as the game calls them, the Ginyu Squad, one by one as we engage them in epic encounters. Epic encounters. The entire Ginyu Force is defeated by Goku on this single map. No body change, no Vegeta stepping into kill steal, no Goldo at all. They didn't even bother with him. He's not in the game. Then we go straight to Frieza 2 maps over. Vegeta dies off screen, I guess. I mean, it's not like he was an actual character in this game anyway. And then Goku encounters Lord Frieza in his first form. Oh no, I know what this means. You fight Freeze Pop 3 times in a row as he blows through his forms. Bosses in this game can only throw 1 punch or a single ki blast at you, so this is just the same battle thrice over. Really, it's the same battle you've been doing the entire game, and you just did 4 of for the Ginyu Force. Eventually, he hits final form, the planet begins to blow up for no reason. We skip the Spirit Bomb and the Death Ball and everything entirely. And then at last, Frieza just awkwardly shuffles into the proper position to kill Krillin, or Krillin just disappears. What a piece of shit, folks. Because there are no new attacks and are no visible numbers, as I've harped on over and over, this could be purely a sprite change for all I know. If Super Saiyan does make you more powerful, you can't see the difference, and it doesn't matter because this is the end of the game. The same boss fight for the 8th time in the past 10 minutes. Fucking brilliant. You don't unlock Super Saiyan as a skill to mess with in the rest of the game either, which results in a game with Super Saiyan Goku on the box that features him for a single minute at the end of the game. Another impressive ending FMV of Namek exploding, and then the game ends. Fittingly, in a move I've never, ever seen before, you can't do anything after this point because the credits loop endlessly, just re-rolling over and over so you can be sure exactly who to blame. But like I said, don't actually blame these people. They made good games later. My brain is dissolving after playing The Legacy of Goku. Every factor that went into this game's creation is confusing and bad and wrong. And I didn't even spend that much time on it. The Save the Children busy work doesn't do a very good job of concealing just how short this game truly is. Legacy of Goku is, as far as my video game knowledge is aware, the shortest RPG ever. The only one that's even close that I know of is Hydlide, you know, the first action RPG. If you know of a shorter one, please let me know. I'm not screwing around, I'm genuinely curious. If the combat worked properly, even with the side quests, I'm confident I could have beaten this game in under 2 hours, easily. There are linear platformers on the same console that take longer. I'd say this is the Order 1886 of Game Boy games, but at least when you shoot things in that game, they take damage. When you stop fighting with the awful controls and hitboxes, this game is nothing. It's a demo that's barely 2 hours long but cost $30 at launch. That's likely why it's so damn pointlessly difficult. If you weren't retrying and redoing stuff for 2 or 3 hours because most of your attacks just lack physical mass, you'd realize this is barely a complete release, never mind a good one. The combat is laughable, the game is slow and clunky to control, the story's butchered beyond all recognition, leveling up does nothing, the game is short as hell and padded by stupid save the cat from the tree style quests. Man, when I was taking notes while playing through this game, I was gearing myself up for a strong do not touch this recommendation at the end here. However, Legacy of Goku is so strange in every aspect of its design, so off-putting to longtime fans, so hastily slapped together and so brief that I would recommend that Dragon Ball enjoyers should give it a go. Legacy of Goku 1 feels like a beta that would leak on the internet years after its cancellation on Unseen 64 or something. It does not feel like a real finished video game in any way. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not positive that it is. By the way, if this video does well, I'll cover the sequels too, so like and subscribe if you want to see those. Okay, thanks.